So we wanted to talk a little bit about the importance of having representation as a buyer here in the state of North Carolina, and more specifically in the capital and the coast.
Correct.
Right?
I think that's a very layered kind of reason why you need someone. First of all, if you're not from North Carolina, it is a buyer beware state.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's super important to have an agent that has a level of experience in the market with homes, right?
Well, that it's buyer beware, and also we have something called due diligence, a non-refundable deposit that really kind of takes a lot of our out-of-state buyers by surprise.
Yeah,
which that's probably another video and sort of thing, but just really talking about the importance of buyer representation. When you're buying here, really anywhere, of course, but in the state of North Carolina, because that's what we know best.
Yeah, I mean, there's some ramifications, right? If you go under contract in North Carolina, you could lose some money.
Some significant money.
Or you could purchase a home that has some issues that perhaps could have been maybe seen earlier on in the game. Now, I am the first to say I am not a home inspector, but sold a couple hundred homes, right?
Yes, yeah.
So you tend to have some experience on things that are red flags or just things that you notice when you're doing a walkthrough with a home too. So I think that's one thing that's important for us. Not that we tear down a home, but I will say to someone, like, it's my duty or responsibility, anything that looks like to be a red flag or something that I just want you to pay attention to, I'm going to bring that up as we kind of walk through a property too. It's not just about the pretty things, right?
No, you get to go and look at the pretty things, but you would be hiring us to be able to look at the other things that we would have questions about. And I think what also is so important to have that buyer representation, obviously we would love to be those representatives for you, is the partnerships and the connections that we have here. So if we are at a house, we've been in the business long enough and we've created so many great relationships that I can take a picture of something and pretty much within a certain amount of time, very short amount of time, I can get a response back from an inspector.
Yes.
Or from a vendor, because again, we're not inspectors. That's not my license is in. We've seen enough houses. We've looked at enough things to be like, this concerns me, or this would be a question that I would want further investigation on. And so as you're going to a house, looking at how big their rooms are, if it has a pool, it has a screen porch, is the kitchen big enough for all the family gatherings you want to have? We're going to be on the back end doing the dirty stuff, doing the not so fun things. Fun for us, but the things that you don't want to really have to worry about. And that's why you would hire somebody 100%. Like us to be able to take some of that responsibility off of you.
Well, and kind of while we're talking about some of the problems, right, in the home purchase, is that I think during every transaction, there's always something, right, that comes up and you're like, there it is.
The moment I think that I know everything is the moment I need to retire because every transaction is different.
There's always a little something. So I think really our primary role is, yes, to help you find a home, but it's to also help you navigate emotions or to help find solutions when inevitably that thing pops up that you did not expect.
Yeah, because we're not doomsdayers and we aren't waiting for things to happen. But again, we've been doing it long enough to know that something will pop up, something minor, something major. But our first instinct is to get on the phone with each other, rally around our team and say, okay, this is what we've been presented with. What are our next steps to find a solution to?
And one thing I've really learned over the years, there is always a solution.
Absolutely.
There's never a problem. I've had termites, had a lot of termites. I've had crawl space issues. All those things are significant to a home. But again, it's finding out how are we going to fix it? Who's going to fix it? How much is it going to cost? And who's going to pay for it? But there are always solutions.
And that's something that you touch on that Pam is very, very, very good at is, so we would be representing you as a buyer's agent. There's going to be a seller who's being represented by their listing agent. And so what I think also is a little bit different, what's a really big strength of ours is how we're able to create a relationship with the agent on the other side. And I really don't like to say the other side, right? We're all on the same side. We all have the same goal. And that common goal is to sell the house. We just want to make sure that we sell the house where everyone feels like that they had a say in it, they had a part in it, and that everyone, feels like, okay, this was the best avenue to take to get this home sold.
Totally agree. I think that it's a huge miss that sometimes people want to create adversarial environments with the other side. But there have been many times where we've helped everyone win because we've like, well, I'm going to try to find a solution. There's a way to do it. So let me work, maybe perhaps more than I really even should. But if it's going to get my client what they want and ultimately what they want too, then why wouldn't we do that too?
Well, yes, because we know you catch more flies with honey, and so we have a little bit of vinegar and spice in us if we have to, but that's not what we lead with. And so we just know that so much of our business is based on community and based on networking and based on relationships, not only relationships with our clients, but our relationships with other agents. And I think that Pam and I, pride ourselves on that. We've got a pretty good relationship and a pretty good reputation in the community for being problem solvers, for having great communication, and really understanding what both sides need to get them to the closing table. So that would be something that we're super proud of.
I totally agree. I think the only other thing I would mention too is, again, we've talked about us being a little bit of a data nerd sometimes.
We are.
But we always run comps. Like, we really try to understand what the market looks like too on the buy side as well. Like, we talk about a lot of stats on the list side, but they're super important for a buyer too to know, like, on average, list price to sales price ratio, right? How many days on market, not just in the city, but that neighborhood, and kind of putting all of those stats to really help educate our buyers, to help set them up for success to win.
And you bring up a great point that it's also understanding and knowing that it's not just the purchase price that sometimes is what's going to win a deal. It's not just one thing, but it's really curating and having that conversation with the agent on the other side of the transaction, to just have that conversation and say, what is most important to your seller? We hopefully have found out what's most important to you as the buyer if we've done our job, which we talk about how we ask a lot of questions, but how can we curate the best offer? And sometimes I think some agents think it's just the highest amount of money. And what we found is it's really not. It's the timing for something, or it's they need this deposit for whatever the case may be. Again, every transaction is different. But I think that what really sets us apart is truly looking at a deal or looking at an offer, not just from that one point, but from all different points, and curating that best one to put you in the best light as a buyer and ultimately win the offer.
Yeah, for sure. We're good negotiators and all the other good stuff too.
Well, she's a good negotiator. I think we're both good negotiators, but she's really good.
She gets saucy sometimes.
She gets very saucy sometimes. I call her when I need to get saucier.
Not always, but sometimes it's definitely.
But it goes back to negotiating and to a point where it's not coming from an adversarial place. No. And it's not coming from ego either. It's coming from, this is what our buyers want. This is what the sellers want. So again, everything is pretty much fixable. We might not all love the solution, but there's a solution there. It's going to get us to the ultimate
You
goal.
walk out of a negotiation, everybody a little scuffed up, but we're still standing and walking. That sometimes can even be a successful deal, for sure.
That can get emotional. And I think the last thing that I'll touch upon is that we're here to stay level-headed. You need us to, no matter what comes at us, high or low, good or bad, Pam and I've got your back. We've seen all kinds of different scenarios, and we might not love what's going on either, but we're going to stay level-headed. We're going to run through all the scenarios with you. We're going to give you all of your options, and together we'll figure out what's best. Do you agree?
I agree. Yeah, it's all about serving the community in the best way we know how, for sure.
So hire me.
Hire me, I'm the best.